Hey guys, it is Mr. Dave with the Ray Kitty Science Project here that you're watching from Ray Kitty Creation Workshop. I am excited to be back here today at Studio 519. I love the crew. I love doing all these wonderful things. We've got a cool team working here today. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. You may see I don't have any big chemicals or crazy machines or doodads or gizmos. Today we're going to be working with something that scientists have worked with for a long time. Paper. Yeah, paper. The majority of things we're going to be doing here are just paper. So if you are going to follow along at home, I have a couple extra things that we're going to do to kind of enhance our paper experience that you will want to get. Scissors. You'll want some scissors. Tape. I chose masking tape because you can see it. If you've got Scotch tape or present tape or any other kind of tape, duct tape, Gorilla tape, it doesn't matter. Masking tape is easy to see and easy to manipulate. So I chose masking tape because it's easy to tear. If you are doing a demonstration or you are doing something with the younger kids, masking tape's the way to go because they can tear it a little bit easier. But if you are a little bit more advanced, you can use something a little crazier if you want, but I'm using masking tape so you can see where I'm taping things. Another strange little thing that I will be adding to the mix today is this is clear nail polish. It is top coat or base coat, again bought from the dollar store because I love that dollar store science projects that you can do for very cheap. So I have my nail polish, I have a tray of water, I have some markers, scissors, tape and paper. Okay. Now I will also be using the paper from a little adding machine. You don't have to use this. You can tape some sheets together, but I will be using this adding machine paper for sake of being a little bit quicker in some of my bigger demonstrations. So this one here is something fun that you can get at Walmart. You can get it at any online or really any retailer have it. And it's inexpensive, and there's a lot of fun science you can do with just this. So, mainly today, paper, scissors, some nail polish, markers, and tape. And you should be good to go with the science we're going to be doing today. Now, the science we're doing is going to involve a couple different types of science and a couple different areas of science. We're going to go into our nanoscience, which is the science of things very tiny. We're going to do that one last. We are going to go into kind of our planes and dimensional sciences. So we're going to mess with that first just a little bit, and we are going to get right into some of our experiments because I've got some fun ones for you. So first you're going to need, for this one here, a piece of paper and some scissors. That should be all you need. I'm going to be using some markers to kind of show you what's going on, but I have a piece of paper, and I'm actually going to get the paper from this one, from this little doohickey here. Now, I held this up not too long ago in front of a class of youth, students that were way too old to not know what this was called. When I held this up, or actually I was reaching for it, I said, hey, I'm going to grab a tablet. I picked this thing up, and I had a few of the students who were older than you think they should be saying, that's not a tablet. This is a tablet. Now, a tablet doesn't always have a screen. Okay, this is a tablet. This is a little book of paper. I did ask them what they thought it was, and that was their answer was, that is a book of paper. I couldn't say they were wrong, but yeah, so I'm going to use the paper from this tablet just because of the size. Now, I tore out a sheet of this paper here, and what we're going to do is I am going to cut a hole in this piece of paper. This is a dimensional science that will be able to fit a cow through it. Okay, so we're going to fit a cow through this piece of paper. Now, it's not a real cow. I don't actually have a cow with me here in the studio because it's very messy and stinky. We don't want that. I have a little stuffed cow that my youngest daughter gave me, and so this is a cuddle cow. But yeah, we are going to fit this cow through a hole in this paper. Okay, so you may look at that and say, well, how are you going to do that, Mr. Dave? Now, this is one of those things where you hear a lot of times you need to think outside the box. In this case, you are going to think inside the box, okay? A lot of times your answers are right there in the box if you look hard enough. So what we're going to do is I'm going to fold this piece of paper in half, okay? So I've got my sheet of paper folded in half, okay? Now that's going to make it a little bit harder to fit that cow through there. But what we're going to do, again, we're thinking inside the box. I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to draw a couple lines on here just so you know where to cut, okay? We're going to cut one here. We're going to cut one here, 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 here. And we will continue somewhat of a zigzag pattern, okay? So we're going to have a zigzag pattern that goes through our paper, okay? That will go something like this. Now, I drew this line because this is our folded edge, so we're going to cut a little bit off of that folded edge, okay? Now, I'm not going to follow these lines directly because I'm going to be looking up at you, so I'm going to turn it over so I'm not looking at the lines because I've cut these a couple times before. So, to cut our center, I'm going to cut just that folded edge. Now, don't cut all the edge off, okay? I will show you how much I cut here. I got a little strip, and when I open it up, you'll see that it is not cut all the way to the ends. That's very important, okay? So we've got a hole now that our cow can fit through. No. Yeah, that cow's not going to fit through that hole yet. So what we have to do is we have to find a way to make this material, okay, when we're working with our materials, to make this material take up a wider area. Okay, it's not going to take up more space. It's always going to take up the same amount of space, just like the molecules in our last one. It's going to take up the same amount of space. The same molecules are there, but we're going to extend the area. Okay, and I'm going to do that by making some cuts. So I'm going to cut from that edge that I had. I'm just going to cut all. Now, none of these cuts go all the way across. Very important. So you'll see that I cut this about, I don't know, 9/10 of the way through, okay? I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the same thing. So we're zigzagging it back and forth, never cutting to the edge, okay? So we're never going to cut all the way to the edge, but we're cutting along this paper here. Now, you can kind of see already that our paper is able to take up a little more area than it did before, right? We're going to be able to get a little bit more length out of this paper. So as you continue, I'm not going to get too close with my cuts here because we won't need it for that size there. But normally, you can get as close as you want, but the closer you get, the more fragile your paper gets. So I'm just cutting back and forth, okay? And essentially, I'm making a hole with these little zigzags, okay? So I'm going back and forth now. I'm getting close to the edge here. So you're going to want to stop before you reach the edge. You're going to want your last cut to match up with the end of your first cut that you did. Okay? So the first cut that went parallel to your fold, you're going to want to match that. Okay? So I've got a line here. And I've got a line here. Okay? Now, what we're going to do is you can see already that this is taking up a lot more area, right? We've got a lot larger hole than we had our original size of the paper. But when you take it and you open it up, we can see that we've got plenty of space now in this paper to fit our cow through it, okay? So now you've cut a hole big enough to fit a cow, okay? Now, this one here, I didn't cut very close to the edges, okay? So I don't have very narrow ones, but I did cut one ahead of time, and I did this one here with lots and lots of them. Now, this one is going to be a lot more fragile because these are little bitty cuts. Little bitty, of course, is a scientific measurement, meaning they're not real words. So I've got this one here that I cut. As you can see, we'll see if we can keep this all in one piece. But the object here is to actually cut a hole large enough in the paper that you can step through or walk through, okay? Now, I've got this one here. These are pretty close, so we'll see. So far, I haven't torn it, and this is from a normal letter size piece of paper, okay? So I did this one from a letter-sized piece of paper. This was my second try. Because my first try, I got a little overzealous there. And you can see I've definitely got enough. I can let this hang down to the ground. And I have enough out of that one piece of paper, probably even without opening it all the way up. I've got enough that I can easily step through that piece of paper. So I was able to cut a hole in a piece of paper that I could walk through. Okay, now, I got it caught on my microphone cord. So, there you go. So now I've got I've got a line because I had to open up my giant hole there. So what we did there was we thought outside the box by thinking inside the box, and we made the dimensions of something, just like when you were looking at those molecules when they are solid versus gas, we're taking up a lot more area, but we have the same material. Okay, so we've got the same material as we had before. Now, that's a fun one that you can do to kind of just show your friends, hey, I know this trick that you can do. I can cut a hole that you can go through paper. But it's a nice study on dimension, and it's a nice study on your material sciences, on how to make materials work in a situation that things don't seem so straightforward. Now, this next one, I'm going to do with our little Mobius, or I'm going to make a Mobius strip with our paper. Okay. Now, a Mobius strip is an interesting thing. I'm going to start by making just a loop out of paper. Okay. Now, I'm doing this with the calculator or counting machine tape. You can also do it if you take a paper, cut it into strips, and tape the strips together. Okay, but for sake of time, I wanted to have the paper that was a little bit longer, that I can get a little bit crazier with it. So paper has, we're going to say, two sides. Okay, now of course you've got your edges which count as sides, and you can get into all kinds of crazy things, but we're going to count this as a two-dimensional object. Okay, because we're going to get into those dimensions now. So we're going to say that this paper is a two-dimensional object, and we're going to kind of fiddle with those dimensions just a little bit, okay? Now, if you're any fan of the Marvel Universe and all of the wonderful things that are going on there, this is a fun one that you can say, hey, I know how I can mess with those dimensions. So, we're going to start, I'm going to get me a piece of paper about that long, okay? And again, we have our two sides, right? So this is our two-dimensional or flat object. And I'm going to start by making a circle or making a loop, okay? So I'm going to get me a little bit of the tape, once I can find the end here. And I'm going to tape my edges, okay? And again, you can do this with strips of paper if you don't have any of this tape around, or if you don't have access to this kind of tape, you can just tape two pieces of paper together, and it will have the same effect, okay? Or three, or however big you want your loop to be. So I'm going to put another piece right here, okay? Now, it is important that you tape both sides, because we're going to have some weird stuff going on, and you want your tape to go all the way to the edges, okay? That's also important. And again, I use this tape so you guys can see my tape on there. My tape does go all the way to the edges. I even wrapped it around just a little bit there. But you want that tape to go all the way, and I'll show you why in just a few minutes, okay? So now we have a loop, a circle, okay? We have two dimensions, or our back and our front. And you can tell because if I get my marker, okay, I'm going to draw a line down the middle of our circle, okay? So I've got my circle, and I'm going to draw a line, okay? Carry on, continue going on, drawing. Here we go. And I am making a loop, okay? Now what you're going to notice, now the marker bleeds a little bit, so you can see a little on the inside, but you can see that we have a definite outside, okay, and a definite inside. If we were to turn this inside out, then we don't have that marker line in there, because we have our one dimension here and our one dimension here, okay? So this we're going to be comparing to another one. We do a little trick that I can show you in a minute here, and then it just gets exponential from there into the multiverse, okay? So right now this is our dimension. We have this one here with a back and a front. This is our nice two-dimensional loop. Okay, so I'm going to set this one right here so you can kind of use it as a reference. And this is where it's going to start to get fun. Now, I'm going to get me about the same amount of paper. I'm going to cut my paper. And the circle that I had before, I'm going to change just a little bit by taking one and flipping it over. Okay, all you're doing is you have that same loop as this one here, except you take one end before you tape it and flip it over. All you're doing is flipping one end over before you tape them together, okay? So I flipped one end over. I'm going to get my tape, okay? Remember, you want your tape to go at least from end to end, maybe further. If it overlaps, that's okay. If it sticks to your finger, that's okay. So I'm going to get a little piece of tape, and I'm going to tape both of my ends of the paper again, okay? Because we want that tape to completely cover. So I've got this side covered here, okay? And then you're going to flip it, and you want to tape that other edge. So you want both of your tapes, or both of your edges taped. That way you've got a nice strong bond there, and you don't have any little tails hanging out. So what we have now, this is called a Mobius strip, okay? So all of a sudden we went from this to some weird scientifical math term and beautiful things. The difference between this one and this one is pretty huge, though, when we're talking about dimensions. Remember, we're entering that multiverse on this one. So I've got my marker, okay? Same marker as before. On this one here, when I drew my circle, I have a circle around the outside, nothing around the inside. Now I am going to draw my same line down the center of our Mobius strip, okay? And I am going to draw my line down the center, just like before. It's not the prettiest line because I'm trying to go kind of fast here. But I've got my line that I'm drawing down the center, okay? And I'm drawing down the center. And I'm still drawing down the center, okay? Now I'm still drawing down the center. Now, something's going to happen in a minute here, and I will hold it up so you can see. When I get to the point where I reach the end, or the beginning, when I touch here, something has happened. The Mobius strip, the shape that this is, the planes that this is, has a single plane. Okay, so what that means is there is no inside and there is no outside. I can take my finger and I can follow it along that line, and I will never be on the outside and I will never be on the inside, because a Mobius strip has one plane. If you look, if I were to turn this inside out, those lines are on the inside just like they are on the outside. Okay, and I say that lightly just as in way of explanation, because there is no inside and there is no outside. Okay, so that's kind of fun as a first step, but this is where it gets even crazier. Okay, so I've got my line drawn down the middle here of my Mobius strip. What I'm going to do is I am going to cut my Mobius strip. Now, I want you to keep this one in mind, okay, because we're going to draw a new line on our new one. And I'm going to just fold one real quick for you. Okay. So now I've got my new Mobius strip. Remember, I start with a circle. I flip that guy over, and that changes from my circle to my Mobius strip. And I'm going to put my tape on there. And remember to tape both sides. Okay. So I'm going to put 2 pieces of tape. And instead of drawing on our Mobius strip, I'm going to use the scissors, okay? And we are going to cut our Mobius strip, and we're going to cut it 2 different ways to kind of see what happens with our Mobius strip, okay? So let me get this taped up. Okay. All right, so I've got my edges taped. I have our Mobius strip. It's the same shape as we had over here, but this time we're going to use the scissors, okay? Now, I'm going to cut just like the line I had there, straight down the center, okay? So that's very important because we're going to make another cut in a little bit. I'm going to cut right down the center of our Mobius strip, okay? When you're doing it, I folded it just a little so I can get my scissors in there. And I'm going to begin cutting down the center of my Mobius strip. Now, if you cut, let me show you here. What if we cut down the center of our circle? What are we going to have? 2 circles. Yeah, we're going to have 2 circles. So if I cut down the center of my normal circle, we should end up with this paper is so soft. Okay, there you go. So we will end up with 2 circles, okay? Now, you want to kind of notice what's going on there because we are now going to complete or finish cutting down the center of our Mobius strip. So here we go down the center of our Mobius strip, and I am cutting the same thing. So we should end up with 2 Mobius strips, correct? So as I'm cutting this here, now remember, our planes are different on our Mobius strip, okay? When I just met there, so I should separate this and I should have 2 Mobius strips, right? No, we actually have one very long piece of paper or loop, but I want to show you something. This, instead of having just that one, instead of having the one plane like our Mobius strip did, if you were to draw your line down the center of this one, you would actually find that, again, you are going to have an inside and an outside. So this new shape, this new dimension that you've got has now multiplied again to give you another inside and another outside. Okay, so now we're going to do one more quick one before we get on to our nanoscience. What we did there was we cut down the center of our Mobius strip. We are now going to cut down the side of the Mobius strip. Okay, we're going to do the same thing as we did before, except we're cutting down one of the edges. Okay, so when you're doing this one here, you want to cut about 3/4. I'll show you there. About 3/4 of the way through. Now I got a longer piece of tape on this one, so I can wrap it all the way around. See if we can get it in one go. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is, instead of cutting down the center, all we're doing differently, okay, this is that same Mobius strip, all we're doing differently is we are going to cut by the edge of the paper, okay? So we're going almost to the edge, about 3/4 of the way through there, okay? So our cut, instead of starting in the center, is now starting off center, in this case to the right, but we are going to go toward the edge here. Now, you should end up with that same big long strip like we saw before, correct? As we're cutting this, we should have the same thing because all we did was move where we cut this paper. Instead of cutting it in the center, we're cutting it off to the side. But what you might notice is, as I'm cutting here, I did not reach the same point because of our single plane. And as I'm cutting, I'm able to still go around, and I missed that first one because we're not in the center. And as I'm cutting, we're still going here. And it will take, there we go. And it will reach a point here in just a second that our paper, there we go, will meet right here. And now, just because we've moved where that was, we actually have our Mobius strip again, and then we have our infinity loop, or that secondary one that we had before. So just by moving that over, now we have 2 loops that have come from that same little process there, just by moving that over a little bit. So our planes have now changed again, or multiplied again. So we've gone from our single dimension to our 2 dimensions, up to 4 dimensions, back down to 2, and now at 8 dimensions. Okay, so with that Mobius strip one, that's a fun one that you can do. You can show your friends, and you can kind of, hey, can I cut this, and that kind of thing. So that's a fun science of the planes and how that works. Okay, now we've got one more quick experiment here that we'll do with the paper. And this one is with some water, okay? Now, the other ones that we did with our white paper. But this one here, I've got some nice dark paper that we're going to do this one with. And the reason you want dark paper is it's just going to show up a little better. This was the demonstration that you did want that nail polish for. Okay, because we're going to be using just a couple drops of this, and we're actually going to be hydro dipping our paper, and this is going to be nanoscience. Okay, so we went from our dimensions, multi-dimensions and splitting dimensions and all those kind of things to very, very, very tiny. Okay, again, if you went into that whole quantum universe, nano is that step before quantum. If you look on a tape measure, okay. This tape measure here has got a meter, okay? So I've got feet and I've got a meter. Now a meter goes to right here. A centimeter is this much, okay? That much right there is a centimeter. Now, a centimeter is 1/100th of a meter. A nanometer is 1/1000th of a meter, okay? Let that sink in. That's a lot of zeros, okay? So we're going to be messing with nanoscience for this part here. This is a very quick, very easy experiment that you can do at home, and you can actually do it with a lot of things, and we're just going to be doing it with paper. Okay, so I've got my paper here. If you look closely at this paper, it's just regular cardstock. Okay, nothing too shiny, nothing too crazy, but we are going to apply nano layers to this paper. And the way we're going to do that is some very tricky science. We're going to take this and put a drop in the water. Yeah, that's it. So we're going to take our nail polish, okay, clear nail polish, and we are going to let one drop drip in the water. Okay, I already dripped one, so I'm going to go one a little more toward the center. Okay, one little drop. Now you want to be quick when that drop hits, and it will spread out, and you want to take your paper and you want to get underneath it, and you want to scoop up those layers, because the nail polish spread out so quickly, we have this slimy stuff here that you're going to notice you've got a beautiful rainbow on there, okay? Now that rainbow is because the light is reflected in nanometers, so we have all those colors. This is the same reason that we have the most beautiful landscape on the planet in a Walmart parking lot when it rains, right? Yeah, okay, it's maybe not the most beautiful, but those little rainbows that you see there, those shiny little particles are thicker and thinner, and that's what give us those beautiful colors. Okay, so what we did here today was we messed with planes, and by planes I don't mean airplanes, I mean different surfaces, planes, or dimensions. So we went through lots of dimensions today, all the way down to our nano, right, which is our very, very tiny one. And we saw this on the paper here. This is the same reason that a butterfly wing has its beautiful color. This is the same reason the oil slicks in a Walmart parking lot give you that nice, beautiful rainbow that you can splash in and then track into your carpet in your car. So the same science here. This is nanoscience. Our other was working with dimensions. Okay, so I am Mr. Dave. I hope you enjoyed this one. The only things you will really need are paper and some nail polish, scissors, tape, that kind of stuff. Thank you for watching the Ray Kitty Science Project. And remember, science shows you matter.